Now, I would say that all experience is valid. Some traditions negate the value of the lower principles in man, and I'll stick a picture of the sevenfold constitution of man up in a minute. But the immortal self acquires the lower principles and descends into matter to gain experience during physical life. And no experience gained by these principles can be discounted. Everything is valid. Okay. Now, Geoffrey Farthing, he was a big name in Theosophy up to about 10 years ago. Human life with its vicissitudes and suffering has appropriately been called a training ground, the school of life, in which the main lesson to be learned is the elimination of selfishness in all its forms. But he does have the point there, it is a training ground, you have to engage life. Now, is all personal ambition necessarily selfish, given that we all have a role to play in the material world? And we're given a physical body and we're brought into the material world, and we all have a role to play, challenges to face, and karma to fulfill, negative and positive, during that life. So, is ambition necessarily selfish? So you can really only know that yourself. Okay. Now, the hermit here from the tarot, he retires to meditation and contemplation after having experienced a long and eventful life. Now, I would say that any philosophy that says you don't engage life is actually jumping straight to the hermit, and the hermit's about 106, gold, and he's lived a life, he's run his race, and possibly the lessons that he's had to learn, the challenges he's had to face, he's learned them and faced them. But he is at the end of a long life. He's not retiring from the game at 19. Does anyone want to pick me up on these?
You seem to be doing quite well.
All right. Okay, the Constitution of Man. I think everybody's familiar with this. We're all.
There's that thing, isn't there? Do you want to work it out again?
Yeah. Okay. Do you want me to go through the Constitution of Man?
No, that's alright. Pretty clear.
Okay, right. Okay, we'll move on. Just in case we've got anybody completely new. Right, where most of us are. Now, there's highly developed people like ascended masters and general sort of spiritual guru type characters may find and extend their spiritual impression purely from, not for, fully from, dyslexic, the higher principles, with the lower principles as useful ancillary to engage physical life, and that they basically have reached a point where they're reincarnating through choice, and the need to engage physical life is optional. In fact, the need to reincarnate is optional. But most of us aspire to this, but we're not at this level, and we still have some way to go. We still have lessons to learn, and we still have to engage the physical world. Now, ambition and desire are both creative forces, and they're neither good nor bad. The two are closely related, but although desire may exist without ambition, I would say it's impossible for ambition to exist without desire. There has to be some level of emotional motivation there. There's past life reinforcement. The desire, ambition and spiritual progress in one's life are all influenced by past life behaviour. Now, positive effort at any level in this life will not be wasted. And I've introduced the concept here of will, which I'll be covering in a couple of minutes, is also influenced by past life behaviour. But if you, say, are ambitious but control your desires in this life, and to some extent make spiritual progress as a result of controlling your desire, that will not be wasted, and that will reinforce your ability to do this in future lives. If you don't control desire, I'll mention this later, then you become like the horse and cart, where it goes where the horse wants, not where the driver wants.
So what's a bit of a definition: desire, ambition, and will?
Right.
What's the difference?
Well,
between desire and ambition?
I'm covering will in big detail in a couple of minutes. Right. Desire is the emotional need to do something.
Mm.
We all have it, and without it we couldn't function. Now, ambition is a rational formulation of an agenda to achieve something. Now, normally that would be driven by a level of desire. And if it's unlikely that you would have an ambition to achieve something or an agenda to achieve something without a level of desire, it may come from your will, which is a higher process. But for most of us, things come from desire and rational thought. But as we make spiritual progress, progressively the concept of the will, which comes from the higher principles, comes into play. But
I think it depends what you're ambitious about, isn't it? If your ambition is to see your children safely through childhood, that would come from will, because your own desires get a bit squashed on the way.
That's right, you have to control desires to achieve an ambition. Yeah.
In order to achieve that. But if your ambition is to rob a bank, it's slightly different.
That's right, yeah.
So if you could say positive desire and positive ambition.
Yes.
So it's the goal that is the crucial.
That's right. But see, if you were starting as a person who'd never lived a life before, then to me you've acquired the lower principles in order to engage life and gain experience. You would at the very beginning only have desire and rational thought to work with, and gradually your will would come into play as you would interact between the two, and it would be carried forward by the essence of the higher mind. The reincarnating ego would carry these lessons forward, this ability forward. But for most of us, we're still working with desire and rational thought, formulating ambition, and gradually we make progress over a number of lives.
And I think it's the Freudian ego that gets in the way. You know,
the desire and rational mind.
Yeah,
yes.
it's that ego, you know, you could be doing something but positive, but then your ego starts giving you,
Well, it's the desire principle overtaking the rational thought processes.
Yeah.
I would say.
Like Theosophy teaches that you only learn and you only experience while you're alive. You don't learn or experience anything when you're dead. You just sort of, whatever you've done in that life sort of gels into good or bad karma, and then prepares you for the next life. But the actual learning and the actual achievement happens in this life. And your next one, and the next one, and the next one.
I also think it's interesting. I was just thinking about the Dalai Lama, who's probably one of the most spiritual people on the planet, and even his role as the Dalai Lama is actually not through his own desire or ambition. It's actually chosen for him, and with great reluctance. As a child, they find him and put him through this rigorous. So even that, there's no desire or ambition.
No.
It's just you accept your.
You just get on with it.
Yeah.
I like to put that slightly different. You're saying he has no ambitions, and because as I understand it, that in our soul, in our hearts, we all come in to do something, and I've heard it saying that there's something like a desire which comes from the outside and the inside. The inside could also be the desire to eat. But I would also say, as you're saying, you want to make sure your children are growing up in the right way, or whatever that is. And I think that that is simply that you actually take control over that desire. You're not actually being run by a desire from the outside. Do you see what I mean?
No, you like Dave says, you're using your rational mind to decide this is best for my child.
Yeah, but because you have a soul inside, which is because we are progressing. So I would actually say that is also, you could say, a desire from the soul to do that. Because the thing is, you're taking control. You're not being controlled by it. Yeah. And I think that is also an inside. And when we are being controlled from the outside, that is when the life is running us. Like when, for example, when we get angry, then the ego is running us. That's how I see it. But,
well, the desire principle, yes, is ruling over the higher principles, the higher will. Yes, some people have no personal will at all. So
well, they would have some.
Is there in potential?
I think the minute you decide this is what I am going to do, you're in control. But
there can be a rational decision made, and then you can hold the line yourself. I want to lose weight, so I'll stay out of the chip shop every night. That is an exercise of you could say that's will, but that's more control of the desire principle through a rational thought process. But
there are also, of course, another way of looking at it, and that is, you know, when what they're saying, when the mind comes to serve the soul, and that is when you're doing something, you're not actually decided, you're not been dreaming about it, but it's coming along, and you simply do it, and everything works perfectly. That is sort of the situation where the mind, and that's really what we've got to come to, when the mind starts to serve the soul.
Ideally, yes, we will all reach this level at which everything will be directed by the higher principles, without the conflict between sort of the rational mind and the desire and that. But until we reach that, we have to work with what we've got at where we are. And so ambition and desire are part of the equation, and we have to work with them.
Well, even when we reach that, we still have the desire to eat. The body still got to eat.
Well, there's a difference.
And also,
they say you don't eat in up to 20 years.
Pardon?
I don't know that there are people who go down the road of hardship for its own sake because they think it's good for the soul. And there's some religions they put great emphasis on self-denial. But
that's what we're talking about now.
Well, I think life throws up enough challenges without you having to go looking for them.
Well, I would certainly agree. Some people do think they're really, I've heard people saying they're praying for a hard time so they can wake up spiritually. But of course it doesn't work like that, of course.
Well, it does. You say to God, give me a bigger cross, he'll give you a bigger cross. I'm pretty certain of that. I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, but
that doesn't mean you get to the head of the queue and you get to...
No, you can't have... Calvin talked about this, the idea that you can't score brownie points with God. It doesn't work like that. Just in the same way, you can't contrive karma. of my old cartoon of the guy being run over by a steamroller, and said, "Oh God, this is 50 points of you know, on your karma, you know, like you're pointing an I Spy book." And it just doesn't work like that. No, life throws up. You face the challenges that life gives you with what you have at your disposal. You don't go looking for trouble,
No,
because you will
because
find it. You know.
when you really look at it, there's lots of people out there who are having have had a hard time, and they're actually not really walking up at all. So, as you're saying,
I
going
think
to look
those
for
people
trouble.
who are looking for a harder time would be much better off helping the people who are really suffering. I think
Yes.
then they would earn some brownie points.
That's right.
I don't think that earns any brownie pounds whatsoever, to be quite honest.
What? Not helping people?
You can certainly have compassion, but I don't think, I don't think so.
Depends on your motive, doesn't it? If you've been
Yes,
deep-
exactly.
I
The
That's-
motivation is.
That's
It
all
depends
I've
on
been
your
hearing.
motives with that's true.
That's literally all I've been hearing. What is the difference between will and motivation? Because everything that's being said just makes you think, well, what's the person's motivation? Like you said,
Yeah.
losing weight, what's the person's motivation?
Yeah. Where it
Gaining
comes
points
from.
for heaven, what's the person's motivation?
That's true. It's his intention. Yes. Yeah, that's right. And you can only know that yourself if you're prepared to admit it to yourself. Anyway, let's move on. So.